Hello everyone, Sidewin here, and today I'm going to be showing you 3 simple melee fighter builds, as shown on this slide here. These builds are going to be based off my fighter video from last week, and I am intending to create a new level of each build all the way to level 20 as I go through the fighter series. Now, each of these is supposed to be relatively accessible for new players. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm doing with each one. So the top one there, common only, core only, is essentially the bare base. So it's something you could take and use in the starter kit for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I'm intending to use it to highlight a couple of unique features about Pathfinder, but generally be very simple in play. The second one is the support build. This is my personal favorite fighter build, and it's not often mentioned when new players see fighter builds for Pathfinder, so I thought I would highlight it. It will be a little more complicated than the other two. The last one is a pure damage build. It's going to probably be the second simplest to play, and that's because it'll probably be more fragile than the shield build, which is the common only build. Alright, so now let's get started in Path Builder. Alright, so welcome to Path Builder. Today I'm going to be walking through the builds because I recorded the building process with no audio. Alright, so now starting with the common only, core only. The main highlight of this build is the fact that the character is a Leshy. Leshies are a relatively unique ancestry for Pathfinder 2nd Edition because they're basically little plant people. And they function basically like plants. And then I use their base set ability increases to get this ability layout. As you can see here, strength is very high with low intelligence. This is because Leshies have a penalty to intelligence in base rules. Then here, the character has athletics and survival, and then the class skill is acrobatics. Then nature and stealth is added in over here. This allows the character to be good in a woodland environment, which Leshies would likely be in. Then I chose the Fruit Leshy Heritage because it gives a healing ability. My goal with this build in particular is to ensure survivability, because survivability is often a complaint about Pathfinder, and more survivable characters can easily be built. It's just you have to work with your allies to survive well. Then the Ancestry feat was Leshy Lore to give the flavorful traits. Generally, with Ancestry feats, my policy is they can be a flavor slot. And then class feats, I chose Reactive Shield. This character uses only common. If I wasn't necessarily using common, I might have chosen Everstand Stance or Agile Shield Grip, depending on how I was building this. Then for the weapon, I chose the War Razor. The War Razor is essentially a small weapon. This isn't a damaged character. It focuses on survivability. But the War Razor allows this character to deal a bit of damage. That cancels. Okay. Then for the armor, I chose Hide, and for the shield, I also chose Hide, just for like cheapness to leave this stuff available and for flavor reasons. And this character has a lot of extra gold, so if you wanted to grab a second weapon, say grabbing a longsword or something, you could do that to increase damage. But I left it open here so that you can do basic customizations. It's really, this character is a full build, but you can modify each element of it, and it likely will not change, especially the Ancestry feat, the weapon, and probably the armor. So that's why there's so much gold left available. I highly encourage you to modify as you need. Now, the attack fighter is meant to be a damage character. It's supposed to be a samurai type character. And it has a bit of gold available, but far less. And it's set up for this particular set of weapons. So the character is an orc bounty hunter. The bounty hunter gives a survival skill and the legal lore skill, and the experience tracker skill feat. Essentially, the idea of this character is that they used to be essentially a law enforcer in somewhere, probably in Tianjia. And this is a easily modifiable one. So here, the character has two weapons, the katana and the wakizashi, to create the stereotypical samurai type character. And then for defense, I chose Scale Mail because no heavy armor was affordable. I highly encourage if you're playing this character to swap up the heavy armor as soon as you can. Then here, the character has the Die Hard feat, which essentially makes it so that you die at dying 5 rather than dying 4. Dying increases each turn you are dying or when you are hit. And it also gives 12 hit points at level 1 instead of 10. With the additional Constitution bonus, this results in 24 hit points. As such, the character is pretty survivable. It's not going to die quickly unless you're reckless. Then here, Orc Ferocity is a reaction to make it so that you end up at 1 hit point and wounded 1 rather than any dying time. It's a 1-a-day ability, and it again increases survivability. And then Double Slice is just the feat you pick for a dual weapon build. It is set up so you use a non-agile and agile weapon, in this case the katana and the wakizashi. In general, the character should be fairly straightforward to play. You will likely be focusing on maneuvering, going in and out of combat, and on attacking, because it's very likely you'll want to use Double Slice repeatedly. And in general, the turns will not be very diverse. Now, this last character, the Support Fighter, is probably my favorite build, and it's slightly modified from how I usually build it. So in this case, my favorite ancestries are Gnome and Human, so I picked a Gnome here, so that I could show something here in the set abilities. There's a feature in the Pathfinder Remaster which allows you to override default abilities on any character. So in this case, that's what I did. I overrode the Gnome's minus to strength to instead just get a strength and charisma bonus. So in general, if the default bonuses and penalties really fit what you're playing, this won't seem as appealing. But if it doesn't, take this. Seriously, it's very good to take it. Then, the background, I chose Guard so that you get the Intimidation skill. Intimidation is a major focus of this character. And then the Heritage Chameleon Gnome, I mostly just picked it for fun because it gives stealth. I mean, yeah. And then here, you might switch one of these chosen skills to the stealth. Say, swap Diplomacy to stealth. And I'll do that here because, like, you can swap between various things to make it fit what you're playing better. Then the Ancestry feat, I chose Gnome Obsession. Essentially, each day you pick a lore that you have proficiency with and you have assurance in. It's a flavorful way to reflect the fact that gnomes basically just want to have fun at all times or find new exciting things. And it can be very useful if you're fighting various types of enemies each day and you know going into it. So for instance, if you know you're going into a dragon's lair, you might choose dragon lore before heading out. It works well for that. Then the class feat, I chose Exacting Strike because I'm using a slightly irregular weapon. If you wanted to swap this to a one-handed weapon and no weapon in the hand build, you could swap this to, say, Snagging Strike. However, in this case, I'm doing my fancier version of this, and I'll likely create a second build for the more typical version. So then the weapon's actually key here. I chose the Bow Staff. This is essentially a staff that lets you trip enemies, parry, enabling you to get a +1 bonus to AC using an action without having a shield, and reach, so you can do this from a bit of a distance. That helps increase survivability again. Then for defense, I went with heavy armor. This character could afford it, and it works well. You want as high a bonus to AC as you can get. And here, very little gold, because again, I built this for a very particular thing. Now, at later levels here, this build, I'll mention now, there is a archetype that I am likely going to be adding, which gives additional bonuses to using polearms. And I'll likely be doing a swashbuckler build, which is similar. Thank you for watching. Ask any questions you may have below, and I will see you in the future.